A new noodle shop recently opened downstairs in my apartment complex. It is not only cheap and affordable, but the taste is also quite good. For a corporate slave like me, it feels just like a second home. The key point is that the owner has an extremely beautiful daughter, who is a real feast for the eyes. So, right from the grand opening, I became a regular customer here. I ended up eating there for 3 consecutive months. That was until my cousin opened a new shop right across from the noodle place and asked me to come support her. But as soon as I sat down, someone walked out from the noodle shop opposite. She looked at me leisurely and asked, "What's wrong? Do they let customers touch thighs there too?" My cousin has a boyfriend she has been dating for years. When they were preparing for their engagement, they had some conflicts, and the guy refused to pay any attention to her. Coincidentally, he lives in the same apartment complex as I do. To win her boyfriend back, she thought it over and decided to open a noodle shop downstairs to create more accidental encounters. I just took this as lovers' playfulness. Since the new shop had just opened, as her cousin, it was only natural for me to show my support. I just didn't expect that her noodle shop would be located directly opposite the one I frequently visit. It made me feel inexplicably guilty when I walked into my cousin's shop. After all, that noodle shop opposite. I didn't miss a single of my 3 daily meals, having eaten there for a full 3 months. The owner also frequently gifted me side dishes and various perks. The noodle shop owner and I had developed a deep bond. Now, eating at another place felt like a strange illusion of betrayal. But I didn't think too much of it and walked into my cousin's noodle shop as usual. Hearing the automated welcome greeting at the door, I then saw my soaking wet cousin hurriedly coming out from the kitchen. In this hot weather, she only wore a thin white t-shirt. Now completely drenched, the t-shirt clung to her body, becoming translucent and making her underwear underneath faintly visible. Seeing me arrive, she immediately motioned for me to sit down. The kitchen pipe burst and splashed water all over me. "The repairman just fixed it. Perfect timing that you're here. I'll make you a bowl of noodles first, and then go to your place to change clothes." After saying this to herself, she plunged back into the kitchen. Our two families have a deep relationship, having grown up together since childhood, so my cousin knows my preferences like the back of her hand. Without me having to say much, she already knows which noodle dish I like to eat. I sat at the dining table waiting, resting my chin on my hand, habitually looking towards the noodle shop opposite. While lost in thought, a shadow suddenly loomed over me. Following that, a tall and slender figure walked through the door. "Lu Ruyan, why are you here?" Clearly seeing the person who had just arrived, a wave of embarrassment washed over me. After all, I had been eating noodles at her place recently, and now being caught red-handed here was truly awkward. Her expression remained unchanged, her dark eyes staring straight at me as she asked, "My mother said you were late today and was worried something had happened to you, so she specifically told me to wait for you at the entrance of the noodle shop." Not knowing what she was thinking, her eyebrows knitted slightly. She paused for a moment before continuing to speak. "Then I saw you acting like a thief. Coming out of the residential area, you plunged straight into this newly opened noodle shop without even turning back to look at me." Having said that, she cast her eyes around my cousin's noodle shop. Still that same indifferent look. When the owner of the shop was renovating, my mother came over to chat a bit, hearing that she had just graduated from college and had a great figure. I nodded. My cousin indeed just graduated from college, and her figure was truly excellent. However, isn't her focus a bit off? Could her coldness toward me be because she doesn't even like men in the first place? A sudden wave of despair washed over me. But before I could speak, Lu Ruyan suddenly shed her previous cold demeanor, looked at me leisurely, and said, "What? Does her shop also let customers touch her thighs?" Lu Ruyan, the daughter of the noodle shop owner next door, has an incredibly stunning appearance but a cold personality. Even though we have known each other for 3 months, I have barely seen her smile, and her words are extremely sparse. Most of the time, it was just me eating. While teasing her with cheesy pickup lines, Lu Ruyan remains silent most of the time. On a few rare occasions, she would sit opposite me and ask what it would take for me to shut up, complaining that I was too noisy. In this regard, I am very much like my cousin, sharing the same simp gene. So, I grinned and said, "Tell me your name, will you?" At first, I just wanted to know her name. Later, I wanted to know her height, weight, hobbies, and, most importantly, her relationship status. Upon learning she was single, I was overjoyed and spouted another basketful of cheesy lines. Yet, she still ignored me, which left me feeling deeply frustrated, to the point where I almost wanted to give up. The thigh-touching incident was purely an accident. That day, I was having lunch at her family's noodle shop. Suddenly, an exhibitionist walked in. He had a round face with a stubbly beard, wearing only boxer briefs and white socks. The exhibitionist rushed straight towards me. Before I could react, he suddenly grabbed my hand and forced me to touch his leg. He smiled disgustingly and tried to press my hand onto his private parts, saying, "Young man, want some fun?" Immediately after, he was knocked down by Lou Ruyan's folding stool. I also kicked him twice. Then, the shop owner called the police and handed the exhibitionist over to them. Lou Ruyan then took me to wash my hands. The disgusting feeling made me continuously scrub my hands with soap. I scrubbed while saying, "So disgusting, is this hand ruined now?" At that moment, I was on the verge of tears. Lou Ruyan, who had been standing silently beside me all this time, suddenly grabbed my wrist. Next, she reached down to lift her skirt and pressed my hand against her thigh. She asked me if I still felt disgusted. I shook my head frantically. Well, how should I describe it? It was smooth, soft, very bouncy, yet full of strength. At that moment, I completely forgot the grievance of being tortured by that violent maniac. I tremblingly stretched out my left hand, trying hard to control my drool, and looked at Lou Ruyan with an expectant face. This hand had also been grabbed by her just now. Then, Lou Ruyan told me to leave quickly. She said she was afraid she wouldn't be able to control herself and would beat up a rogue like me. I leaned my face closer and said, "Just hit me gently." After that, the way she looked at me became even more terrified. For the next few days, I still went to her family's noodle shop to eat noodles as usual. Perhaps due to the previous incident, the owner felt very guilty toward me. Therefore, my portion size is always very generous. Moreover, as long as Lou Ruyan is around, she is required to sit opposite me to protect my safety. Eating noodles while admiring her beauty is indeed very appetizing. It caused me to gain 3 pounds in just one short week. Later on, I also mentioned that my hand was not yet fully evolved. I asked if I could apply to touch her thigh just one more time. Lou Ruyan looked at me with a half smile and said, "Sure, do it yourself." That would be so embarrassing, he. I immediately put down my bowl and chopsticks, pressed my excited hand onto her leg, and even gave it a gentle squeeze. She frowned, looking a bit reluctant to watch, but she didn't push my hand away either, as if we had a tacit understanding. Since then, I have tested the waters frequently, but she doesn't agree every time. Usually, she only lets me touch twice a week, which only slightly satisfies my craving. So when I heard Lou Ruyan's words, a great idea suddenly came to my mind. I had interacted with my cousin's boyfriend before. He was handsome and outgoing, but most importantly, he was as fond of women as I was, though. After all, he already has a girlfriend, so at most he would only steal a few glances on the street. Therefore, if Biame wants to make him calm down, isn't the simplest way just to directly use seduction? But I also know my cousin very well. She is a good, kind person, but just very stubborn. She probably never thought about coaxing her boyfriend to be happy like this. There is no other way. Since I am her brother, I plan to teach her a bit. Perhaps seeing that I had not answered for a long time, Lou Ruyan frowned and couldn't help but ask, "Hard to answer?" I quickly shook my head and said, No, am I that kind of person?" Before I could finish my sentence, Biame had already walked out of the kitchen carrying a piping hot bowl of noodles. Her previous clothes were completely soaked, and the kitchen was hot, so this time she simply took off her outer clothes, wearing only a short, tight tank top inside. This world is just so unreasonable. If it were a man swaggering outside bare-chested, everyone would probably call him an exhibitionist. But if the other party is a beautiful woman with an amazing figure, it is completely different. Anyone else would only gasp in their heart, "My goodness, is there really such a good thing?" getting extra benefits just by eating noodles, but I certainly didn't think that way. After all, she is my cousin, no different from a real sister. So I immediately spoke up to remind her, "Put your clothes on quickly, don't let others see you." Diame brought the noodles to my table, then raised her hand to casually wipe the sweat from her forehead. Then she laughed lightheartedly and said, "It's fine, I won't let anyone else see it anyway." She then pointed her finger at an oil spot accidentally splashed onto her lower abdomen, where the surrounding fair skin was slightly flushed. "You really need to wear clothes, otherwise getting splashed like this would hurt quite a bit." I quickly pulled out a tissue and handed it to her. The next moment, I heard a faint, cool voice behind me, "You really do care about her." Without even thinking, I nodded. How could I not? She is my own cousin who grew up with me from childhood. I still have to act a bit like an older brother. "Oh right, Lou." I was about to turn around and introduce my cousin to Lou Ruyan. But just as I turned, I saw Lou Ruyan with a cold face turning around and walking away, without a single trace of hesitation. I didn't feel anything was wrong either. After all, when we were at her noodle shop before, she didn't really pay attention to me. Sometimes when I said too many sweet words, she would quickly turn and leave, cold as ice. Looking at her back, my cousin seemed lost in thought. "Brother, don't tell me this is the cold goddess whom you've been a simp for during the past 3 months and still haven't won over." I rested my chin on my hands, blinking my starry eyes. "You don't understand, she is truly top tier, her looks are absolutely top tier. Her legs are also of premium quality, I just don't know if other parts are equally premium. I am truly too curious." After eating the noodles, I did not stay long and planned to go straight home. Diame's noodle shop does not have a bathroom, so she has to go home if she wants to shower. However, traveling back and forth takes a full 2 hours, so she suggested going to my place to take a shower. I am also looking at houses, planning to rent a place right in this residential area. Having said that, she suddenly became bashful. Thinking about soon living in the same residential area with Jiang Chen makes me feel so embarrassed. As soon as she mentioned this, I was left speechless. Diame and her boyfriend have been in a relationship for many years, already planning to marry and having met each other's families. Therefore, his side once proposed living together for a trial period, but she refused out of embarrassment. He took the initiative to propose living together only to be rejected, and never dared to mention it again. This has now made her path to placating her boyfriend extremely difficult. Because I completely avoided the correct choice, after eating the noodles, I walked straight out of the noodle shop. However, my cousin had to wait a bit. She had to wash the dishes first and then close the shop, so she would probably be about 10 minutes later. But as soon as I walked out, I saw Lou Ruyan standing at the entrance of her family's noodle shop. Seeing me appear, she strode directly toward me and asked, "Your average time eating noodles was about an hour. Why did it take you over 2 hours today? What, did you have a very happy chat with her?" I nodded. We indeed had a great chat, so I didn't pay much attention to the time. While eating, my cousin kept gossiping about our family's rumors. Apart from beautiful women, my biggest hobby is gossip. My uncle and aunt have been professional gossip collectors for over 10 years, which is why my cousin also knows so much family secrets, even though she isn't very interested in them herself. She knew I loved listening to gossip, so she kept telling me stories while I was eating. There was so much juicy gossip, and it was so shocking, that my meal lasted for over 2 hours. Seeing me nod, Lou Ruyan pursed her lips, looking a bit unhappy. However, she always had this expression on her face, so it wasn't much different from usual. She asked again, "So, do you still plan to go to her house for dinner tonight?" I nodded once again. I had no choice, as I hadn't finished hearing all the gossip yet. My Diame had even intentionally left a cliffhanger just to keep me coming back, so I had to go to her noodle shop tonight for the sake of the gossip. Lou Ruyan's face turned even colder. Thinking she was just worried about losing an excellent customer like me, I patted my chest and assured her, "Don't worry, the noodles at your aunt's shop are delicious and affordable, always my first choice. Going to the opposite shop is just for a change of pace." A change of pace? Lou Ruyan suddenly interrupted me, a half-smile on her face. Is it the noodles that are fresh, or is it the person who is fresh? I didn't quite understand those words. Just as I was about to ask for clarification, Lu Ruyan spoke up again. Does her leg feel good to touch? It's alright. My cousin and I used to fight a lot when we were kids. She wasn't as strong as me, so she loved to kick me with her legs. But I didn't forget that I was pursuing Lu Ruyan, so I quickly added, but don't worry, her thighs are definitely not as nice to touch as yours. Lu Ruyan curled her lips. How difficult it must have been for you to even make a comparison between us. Of course. I patted my chest, glancing out of the corner of my eye at the door of my apartment in the residential area, and began to test the waters. Business at the noodle shop is just average today. Auntie can manage by herself. Why don't you come to my place to watch a movie? I recently found a really good horror film. I have been brave since I was a child and love watching all kinds of horror movies. Many friends who watched them with me would scream in terror. If I watched one with Lu Ruyan, she would definitely be scared too, and then she would crawl into my arms. Hey, hee, wipe your drool away. Lu Ruyan suddenly spoke, cutting off my fantasy. I blinked and looked at her, unwilling to give up, and asked once more. Are you really not coming? That horror movie is genuinely really good. She shook her head, still cold as ever. Not going. Having said that, she turned around and walked straight back to her noodle shop, without a single hint of lingering. Meanwhile, my silly cousin had already finished tidying up the shop. She locked up the doors and ran towards me with big strides, shouting loudly as she walked. Watching a horror movie? Let's go, let's go. I'll go to your place to watch it with you. But I need to take a shower at your place first. As soon as those words came out, Lu Ruyan, who was not far away, suddenly paused in her tracks. But I didn't notice her subtle movement. I just nodded and said to my cousin, Sure thing. It just so happens there are still some snacks and beer at home, so we can eat and drink while watching. The moment those words fell, Lu Ruyan, who was about to leave just now, immediately turned around and walked back. She pursed her lips, still wearing that cold, icy expression. You are showing that expression again. You want to invite her to your house to watch a horror movie, and you even plan to drink with her? This is a little hobby of mine. Just watching a horror movie is somewhat boring. Besides, I don't get drunk easily on beer, so eating and drinking while watching a movie is obviously much more comfortable. Therefore, I nodded again and replied, Yeah, is there a problem? I don't know if it was my illusion, but I felt that after hearing my words, Lu Ruyan's face became even colder. But before I could observe further, she just threw out a suit yourself and left directly. She walked really fast, and I wanted to chase after her, but I was afraid that clinging too tightly would make her feel repulsed. After all, the internet says that pursuing someone requires knowing when to pull and push. So I suppressed the impulse in my heart. I turned to greet my cousin standing next to me, inviting her to go upstairs together to watch the horror movie. My cousin planned to take a shower first, grabbing her change of clothes and heading to the guest bathroom. Meanwhile, I prepared beer and snacks in the living room while looking for a suitable horror movie. However, before I could find one, the doorbell suddenly rang. I walked over to open the door and saw Lu Ruyan standing there, holding a bowl of noodles in her hand. This is a new dish my mom just developed. She asked me to bring it over for you to try. She pursed her lips, looking a bit reluctant. I didn't want to come, but she insisted. Aunt Lu had indeed always been very good to me. Every time she created a new dish, she would always invite me to be the first to taste it. Therefore, I didn't find anything unusual in her explanation. Happily taking the noodles and holding them carefully, I asked her another question. Do you want to watch a horror movie at my place? As expected, she rejected the offer flatly, even turning around to leave. But for some reason, she suddenly turned back to look at me and said, I think I hear the sound of water. Is Su Tingting taking a shower? I pointed toward the chair and spoke. Lu Ruyan's brow furrowed even deeper. Gee Bada, have you really thought this through? Huh, think about what? I didn't quite understand what she meant by those words. Lu Ruyan closed her eyes and took a deep breath, as if holding back her emotions. Then, she slowly opened her mouth to ask, Are you really letting her stay at your place to watch a horror movie? I spread my hands, putting on a regretful look. Well, there's no other way. Who told you not to come? Just then, Shu Dingding happened to walk out of the bathroom. Wearing a simple house dress with a lazy look, she casually walked to the living room, opened a bottle of beer, and tilted her head back to take a big gulp. Perhaps hearing some noise, she turned her head toward the entrance. "Hey! I know you. You are the daughter of the noodle shop owner across the street, Lu Ruyan." Lu Ruyan gave a soft "I also know your name, Shu Dingding." Shu Dingding didn't say anything more to her. Instead, she waved at me. "Ji Bada, come over here quickly, the horror movie is about to start. If you are busy, I won't bother you anymore." Lu Ruyan didn't give me a chance to speak. After saying this to my cousin, she turned around and left. I felt deeply regretful, such a good opportunity had slipped away. If only I could have made her stay, watched horror movies together, and shared some wine, perhaps I would have seen more of her charm. "Hurry up and wipe your drool." My cousin's voice suddenly rang out, interrupting my fantasy, which made me very unhappy. So I grabbed a throw pillow and threw it at her head. She let out an "ah," holding her head while looking at me. "Why are you still so violent, Ji Bada? When you need me, you call me brother. When you don't, you call me by my full name. If I had known, I would have beaten you up a few more times when we were kids." She spoke again. "Aren't you afraid she'll think you have bad intentions?" I smiled faintly, slumped onto the sofa, and said lazily, "I'm only afraid she doesn't know. I've hinted at it multiple times before, but she just refused to come to me. I made it clear we would only watch horror movies and absolutely wouldn't touch her, yet she refused to believe me. Am I really that untrustworthy? Well, actually I am." In the next moment, I saw the terrified look in my cousin's eyes. But before she could even speak, the doorbell rang once again. This time, she scrambled to open the door, exclaiming, "Lu Ruyan, why are you here again?" I quickly looked over and saw Lu Ruyan standing at the doorway holding a portion of noodles. There were slight beads of sweat on her forehead, even though the weather lately hadn't been particularly hot. Lu Ruyan spoke up, "This is the second new dish developed by my mother, and she asked me to bring it over for you to try." I quickly thanked her, but I was a little hesitant. I said hesitantly, "But I can't finish it all by myself, Aunt Lu is just too hospitable. Although I am quite a foodie, since I've already had lunch, I really can't handle 2 more portions of noodles." But my silly cousin didn't feel embarrassed at all. She directly snatched the bag from Lu Ruyan's hand, grinning like a fool, and said, "It's fine, if you can't finish it, I will. Anyway, I don't mind sharing with you." For some reason, suddenly feeling a chill, I looked up at Lu Ruyan, but didn't notice anything unusual. She also looked up, gave me a casual glance, then without saying another word, turned around and left. My cousin took the noodles and sat back on the sofa, opening both portions to have a taste. The flavor wasn't much different, just one was a bit spicier while the other was lighter. Just as I was about to continue watching the horror movie with my cousin, the doorbell rang again. My cousin and I exchanged a look, and then we both walked toward the door. Opening the door, as expected, it was Lu Ruyan again, also holding another portion of noodles in her hand. "This is from your mother. Aunt Lu has developed a third new style of noodles, right?" I directly finished the rest of the sentence for her. Lu Ruyan gave a soft grunt of agreement, then handed the noodles to me. I watched the beads of sweat on her forehead fall one by one, sliding down from her forehead to her chin, then from her chin down to her neck, and finally slipping silently into her clothes. This scene made me gulp hard, so refusing to give up, I asked her another question. "Look, the two of us really cannot finish 3 bowls of noodles. Why don't you do us a favor, watch a horror movie with us, and help us clear 1 bowl along the way?" I thought Lu Ruyan would refuse again this time, but she only pondered for a moment and then strode inside. Walking in, she said, "All right, this is a new noodle flavor carefully developed by my mother, and I don't want it to go to waste either." And so, she agreed to watch a horror movie with me. At this very moment, I felt Shu Dingding looked completely out of place. Initially, I was sitting right next to my cousin, and there was an empty seat beside her. It wasn't that I was acting shy, on the contrary, I wished she would sit right next to me, or even better, in my lap. But I was afraid of scaring her away, so I had to take things slow. But to my surprise, Lu Ruyan walked straight between my cousin and me without saying a single word. Then, she squeezed herself into that tiny gap and sat down. We were so close that I could clearly feel the pulse of the blood vessels on her body. I tried my best to control the wild excitement in my heart, fearing that if I acted too perverted, I would scare Lu Ruyan away. After taking a deep breath, I clicked to start the horror movie. The one I chose was an extremely hardcore one. Within just a few minutes, my cousin was scared out of her wits, screaming and almost burrowing herself into Lu Ruyan's arms. Only then did I realize my miscalculation. Had I known earlier, I would have pretended to be terrified and dived into her arms first. However, Lu Ruyan didn't seem to like being touched. As soon as my cousin got close, she leaned toward my side, her eyes showing clear aversion. Though my cousin is usually airhead, she had some situational awareness. Sensing the dislike, she stood up, wrapped herself in the aircon blanket, and sat on my other side. But right after she sat down, a terrifying ghost suddenly jump-scared us on the TV screen. My cousin shrieked in horror, clinging tightly to my arm and not daring to look up. Knowing she was cowardly but still accompanied me to watch the horror movie, I kindly patted her arm, comforting her just like when we were kids. As a result, I completely missed the complex expression on Lu Ruyan's face as she sat beside me. After coaxing for a while, my arm was suddenly tugged by someone. I turned around to look, only to see Lu Ruyan speaking with an expressionless face. "Gee Bada, I am also afraid." She must be testing me. The internet says that girls prefer guys who can exercise self-control. Since I used to cling to her so much before, she must be testing me now to make sure I am a good man who can withstand temptation. So I just pondered for a moment, then decisively snatched the air conditioner blanket covering Biame and threw it to Lu Ruyan. Amidst Biame's screaming in the background, I smiled gently at Lu Ruyan. "If you are afraid, just wrap yourself in the air conditioner blanket." Actually, I wanted to say a few more words to her, but Biame was so terrified that she held my arm trembling, almost on the verge of crying. With no other choice, I had to turn back quickly to coax her. After all, I was the one who snatched her blanket to pick up girls. Before I could say even two soothing words, Lu Ruyan suddenly stood up and said, "I still have things to do at home, so I will leave first." She took 2 steps toward the door, but then, as if remembering something, she immediately turned back and grabbed Biame's arm. Pushing her out the door, she said, "Shu Ding Ding, my mom said she wants to share some secret recipes with you. Come to the noodle shop with me." This movie was truly too terrifying for my cousin. Therefore, she nodded without a second thought, running even faster than Lu Ruyan. Sigh, she is just too timid. But later, my cousin told me that as soon as they walked out of the apartment complex, Lu Ruyan said she had other things to do and asked her to come back next time. My cousin was too scared to return to my apartment to continue watching the horror movie. Since she was already out of the residential area, she decided to just return to her noodle shop to keep operating. However, the biggest reason she opened this noodle shop was to coax her boyfriend, so she did not forget her primary mission. The next day, she discussed with me how to make things up to him. She said, "You have a good relationship with Jiang Chen, just find any excuse to call him downstairs, and I'll wait for him here with a gift." Looking at the text message from my cousin along with an 888 yuan red envelope for the service fee, I did not hesitate for a second. I immediately stood up and went to the 7th floor to find Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen is a very good young man. We once had a heart-to-heart talk, so I understand his thoughts very well. Having a conflict with Shu Dingding, I just feel this silly girl is so stubborn. We are clearly a young couple about to get married, yet she simply doesn't understand my hints. This makes Jiang Chen worried whether she is hiding some kind of secret. Brother G, I'm saying this not because I dislike her, but I'm just afraid she is hiding things and keeping them to herself. Even if there is really something wrong, at worst, I will accompany her to the hospital for treatment. Jiang Chen sighed, then, not knowing what he just thought of, stamped his feet in frustration. That silly girl Shu Dingding, last time I only touched her hand for a bit, her face turned as red as a monkey's butt. She even said that doing so was not good, but can't I even touch my own girlfriend's hand? I expressed my agreement, and also planned to find some time later to have a heart-to-heart talk with my cousin. Come to think of it, she shouldn't be a fool. Just as I was about to go downstairs with Jiang Chen, he suddenly said he forgot his phone and asked me to wait for him at the building entrance. After saying this, he slipped directly into the elevator, leaving me no time to react. However, I knew there wasn't a big problem with this young couple, so I wasn't in a hurry and walked straight out. As soon as I stepped out, I saw my silly Biame waiting at the entrance. She was holding a gift box tied with a ribbon. Inside was the black bean noodles, Jiang Chen's favorite dish. "Brother, why hasn't my husband come yet?" she asked anxiously. "He forgot his phone," I replied. I paused for a moment, planning to help this silly girl out. "Silly girl, Jiang Chen is not really mad at you. But if you still don't understand his heart, you are truly done for. In some matters, at certain times, can we not be so reserved?" She nodded, seemingly understanding but still looking a bit confused. My cousin said again, "Then I will do whatever my husband says." The moment she finished speaking, I saw Lu Ruyan walking over from not far away. Her expression was cold as usual, and she walked straight toward my cousin, repeating, "Husband?" My cousin frowned, looking a bit unhappy as she said, "Who allowed you to call him that?" "Only I can call him that." After saying this, she immediately glanced at me. Having grown up together, I knew she was jealous. Although she could be silly, she really loved Jiang Chen. I quickly comforted her, "Yes, yes, only you can call him that." Only then was my cousin satisfied. She hugged the gift box in her arms, filled with anticipation, and said, "I want to give this gift to my husband when no one is around." "What, are you annoyed that I'm interrupting your good news?" Lu Ruyan suddenly spoke up, then looked up at me with a complex gaze that I couldn't quite read. Meanwhile, my cousin nodded without a second thought. "At this moment, you definitely cannot show up. Don't tell me you have feelings for my husband?" This time, Lu Ruyan did not answer. She just lowered her head to look at the gift box in her arms. Then, she looked up at me and said, "It smells like black bean noodles. This kind of noodle gets soggy easily, did you know that?" I nodded, and she added, "So, it probably won't taste good anymore. It's best not to give it." What a strange thing to say. I don't even have a girlfriend, so who would give me a gift? Besides, even if the noodles get soggy, is it going to give me an upset stomach? Hearing this, Diame fell into deep thought. She muttered, "If they are soggy, they won't taste good, and my husband won't be happy eating them. It would be great if I could use something else to comfort him. This kid is finally getting it." I quickly said, "To comfort a guy, sometimes you don't actually need to rely on external gifts." Diame grew interested and asked me, "How so?" I pointed at her and suggested, "Or, you could let him touch your thigh. Maybe he'll cheer up instantly." Diame hesitated slightly, "Would that really work?" I nodded vigorously. Indeed, black stockings and slender thighs are top tier, no man could ever resist them. Of course, I was no exception. It was just that Lu Ruyan was too stingy, only letting me touch them twice a week. Just as I was thinking this, Lu Ruyan suddenly spoke up, "Gee Bada, my mom asked if you want to go to the shop to eat noodles this afternoon? She specially added 2 extra eggs and a chicken drumstick for you. Let's go, we're going right now." I immediately grabbed Lu Ruyan's hand and walked toward the gate of the apartment complex. She didn't resist my touch and followed me obediently. As for my silly cousin, I had already spelled things out so clearly. If she still couldn't take the hint, she might as well stay single forever. When we arrived at the noodle shop, Aunt Lu welcomed me warmly and went straight to the kitchen to prepare the noodles. Lu Ruyan sat opposite me as usual, reading a book intently. Sometimes I couldn't help but sigh. My attraction to her was actually inferior to a book. It was truly a major defeat. Fortunately, Aunt Lu worked very quickly. I did not dare to sigh for too long, as the noodles had already been served. Being able to eat them continuously for 3 months without getting tired of them, these noodles were truly delicious. I lowered my head and eagerly took a few large bites, completely failing to notice that Lu Ruyan had put down the book in her hand and was looking at me with a complex expression. "Gee Bada, what is it? Am I eating noodles without resisting for once, and you are not used to it?" I felt excited by this strange thought of mine, but I knew very well that it was absolutely impossible. Lu Ruyan tapped her hand on the table, and only then did I reluctantly look up from my bowl of noodles. I saw her staring at me, asking with a serious face, Shu Dingding, will she succeed? Succeed in what? Successfully coaxing back her ex-husband? I nodded decisively. She lowered her eyelashes, and her voice suddenly became very soft. Yet no emotion could be heard in her voice. Are you that sure? I put down my chopsticks and began to analyze seriously with her. You know Shu Dingding's face, she is quite beautiful, and her figure is absolutely flawless. I guess with a little honey trap, this matter will be settled. After all, Jiang Chen and I are both little perverts. Lu Ruyan asked thoughtfully. So, as long as he touches her leg, he will agree? I nodded once again. At the same time, I was lamenting in my heart that if touching Lu Ruyan's thigh could make us a couple, I would be willing to touch it 10, no, 100 times a day. While I was lamenting, Lu Ruyan suddenly stood up and walked over to me. With one hand lifting her skirt hem, she grabbed my left hand with the other and placed it directly against her skin. Wow, this sensation after a week of separation really made my heart surge. I couldn't help but squeeze it twice. Oh my God. I love it so much, it would be even better if she let me take a bite. Just as my mind was wandering, Lu Ruyan asked again. So if someone else was also willing to let her touch their thigh, would Shu Dingding not have succeeded so easily? I still had high confidence in my Biame. Thus, while touching her thigh, I analyzed it with her. No way, she will definitely succeed. Their relationship was already good to begin with, touching the thigh is just an appetizer. When the passion runs deep and they do this and that, won't all barriers disappear? Jiang Chen's inner struggle is nothing more than worrying if my Biame has some issues. As long as that is fine, this deeply in love couple will definitely walk down the aisle together soon. So, Biame will surely succeed. As a result, right after I said those words, she directly flung my hand away. Yes, she flung it. The experience of touching her thigh was too short, it would be great if I could do it just once more. I let out a sigh of grief. Then, I sorrowfully picked up my chopsticks and sorrowfully stuffed 2 mouthfuls of noodles into my mouth. Honestly, Aunt Lu's noodle-making skills have improved quite a lot lately. It was truly delicious, so much so that I even forgot to hold the bowl. Because I was eating so eagerly, I didn't hear clearly what Lu Ruyan was saying. She asked, "Does it really have to be like this?" I nodded randomly. She let out a soft chuckle and did not speak further. I slurped down the remaining noodles into my mouth. Having finished the noodles, although I still wanted to stay and look at the beauty, I was currently more worried about my cousin Biame's big affair. If she actually messed things up, I was afraid my aunt and uncle would cry and bring down my house walls. Therefore, after finishing the noodles and paying, I decided to go home. Just as I was about to leave, Lu Ruyan suddenly chased after me and blocked my way. With a very serious expression, she said, "Okay, wait for me." Wait for what? I didn't understand, so I just smiled, nodded, and said, "Okay." Then, looking back with every step, I walked home. As it turned out, my Biame was still savable. That very day, they went straight onto the fast lane. The young couple now had no barriers left, happily discussing their wedding date. When I went to the noodle shop to find her, seeing her smiling foolishly, deeply trapped in love. Clearly they have been together for so many years, she is really so spineless. Lu Ruyan didn't seem busy today either, strolling around the entrance, and after a while, she walked into Biame's noodle shop. At this moment, Biame was talking to me, "My husband and I are about to have good news." Just as I was about to congratulate her, Lu Ruyan walked in, frowned, and said, "What good news? Reconciling with that boyfriend of my silly cousin? You're happy seeing anyone." Biame replied immediately, "Of course, it's good news with my husband." After saying that, she became shy again, eventually covering her face with both hands, burying herself on the table and smiling foolishly. This appearance was truly eyesore. Lu Ruyan still had no expression on her face, only coldly stating one sentence. Before marriage, everything has variables, and there are many uncertainties. What if he eventually meets someone better and doesn't want you anymore? These words were like lighting a fuse. Biame immediately stood up, hands on her hips, and said seriously, "Lu Ruyan, what nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean by meeting someone better? Once she finds someone better, she won't want me anymore. This lady is very virtuous and capable, okay? My husband praised me himself. Oh my God, women in love are really unbearable to watch. I covered my face and silently lowered my head. Therefore, I didn't see Lu Ruyan's heartbroken look. I only knew that when I looked up, she had already left. With someone's brand new experience of being in love, they couldn't wait to close the shop before dark. So, I went to the noodle shop run by Aunt Lu as usual. Lu Ruyan didn't seem to be there, so I didn't dawdle over my noodles. After finishing at a normal pace, I prepared to leave. Just as I stepped out of the door, Lu Ruyan called out to me, "Ji Bada, it's getting dark. My mom asked me to walk you home." Oh my God, my mother-in-law is simply too wonderful. I nodded dazedly, then walked home shoulder to shoulder with her. This road had clearly been walked countless times. Yet for some reason, this time felt so different. I suddenly felt as if this road was filled with pink bubbles. However, Lu Ruyan was still Lu Ruyan, barely paying any attention to me all the way. It wasn't until she walked me upstairs to my doorstep that I thought she would leave directly. Surprisingly, she suddenly said, "Since we're already here, why don't we watch a horror movie?" That sounded like a great idea. I immediately went to look for a movie while she sat on the sofa, looking quite lost in thought. "What's wrong?" I asked. She frowned and asked in all seriousness, "Aren't we having some drinks?" That would be such a waste. Without a second thought, I shook my head in my mind. What if I drank too much, lusted after her beauty, and pinned her down right then and there? What would I do? So I immediately got up to fetch some alcohol. I brought not only beer but also white liquor. I was worried she might get angry, but she just glanced at it and gestured for me to pour. I didn't dare pour too much, fearing that her alcohol tolerance is not good. She will pass out after just one glass, ending the show immediately, so I must control the amount. I started my classic acting performance again. As soon as the horror movie started, I feigned screams of terror, then pulled her into my arms. Oh my God, holding Lu Ruyan in my arms, my right hand slid down to touch her thigh. This feeling was absolutely amazing. But I didn't dare to go too far, only testing the waters bit by bit. Although she didn't resist, both of my hands were already on her, gently squeezing, yet I still tried to keep my composure. She still didn't say anything, which made me bolder. I snuggled my entire body into her arms. After all, we had both been drinking. At this moment, I wanted to do something even more exciting. I looked up, and hearing the movement, she also looked up. I was already holding her tightly, and now our lips were less than 5 centimeters apart. If only I could kiss her, that would be wonderful. It is simply unimaginable. Actually, I have forgotten whether it was me who took the initiative or her. But I think a cold goddess like Lu Ruyan would definitely not initiate a kiss. It was most likely the alcohol rushing to my head that made me kiss her lips. How should I describe it? Sparks flying like dry wood on fire. We kissed, we rolled, we stripped, and we found joy. In the end, I just want to say she is indeed perfect in every single way. After a night of wild passion, I woke up and pondered my words. I planned to throw a tantrum, crying and making a scene, to force her to take responsibility for me. Who told this feeling to be so amazing? How could experiencing it just 3 times ever be enough? But before I could even start my performance, Lu Ruyan spoke up first. "You have to take responsibility for me." "Huh? Responsibility?" I couldn't help but look up at the ceiling. What? Since when did pies start falling from the sky? Or did green smoke rise from my ancestral grave? I plan to call my grandparents later to have them check if the ancestral grave on the back hill is indeed smoking. As for right now, I definitely nod my head decisively. Rest assured, I will definitely take responsibility for you. Hearing this, a faint smile appeared on her lips. She was about to reach out and hug me, but then, as if remembering something, she continued, "So, is the matter with Su Tingting still going to continue?" How did she know that I was going to help Jiang Chen propose to Su Tingting today? The apartment complex downstairs should have already been set up, and I almost forgot about it. Therefore, I immediately sat up and hurriedly put on my clothes. "What's wrong?" I answered while getting dressed. "He is preparing to propose downstairs today. I almost forgot about this, so I have to get over there right away." Just as I finished speaking, Lu Ruyan, who was sitting on the bed, also got up. She grabbed my arm, her face darkening. "You just did that kind of thing with me, and now you want to go see Su Tingting?" I was bewildered. Is there any connection between these two things? "You think it's not related?" She chuckled, but the smile did not reach her eyes, looking quite terrifying. But I still nodded. There really was no connection anyway. "The matter between you and me is our business, and his business today is. It has nothing to do with that. Listen to me." Lu Ruyan suddenly let go of my hand and stared at me. "Ji Bada, you are really something." Having said that, she turned around and left. I stood there dazed for a moment, then started to yell, "Damn it, what a jerk, running away after sleeping together." Oh, I still wanted to sleep some more. But heaven did not hear my prayers. Non-stop calls from my future brother-in-law forced me to put Lu Ruyan's matter aside to help him complete his proposal ceremony today. After changing my clothes, I went downstairs and sent a text message to Su Tingting as planned. I told her I planned to have dinner with her today, and also help a friend catch a cheater in the act. As everyone knows, even just watching a drama of catching a cheater requires a certain presence, so one must dress decently. Having done this, I went straight downstairs. The neighborhood was already decorated, with pink balloons everywhere. There was still some time before the ceremony started, and later I had to lead my brother-in-law to Jiangchen. Therefore, I was walking along this road to get familiar with the process. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a large tree. "Who is it? Lu Ruyan?" After seeing who it was clearly, I was stunned. She held my hand, her eyes full of pleading. "Can you not go?" I shook my head. "Today's matter is very important, I must be there." She lowered her head, holding my hand even tighter. "Fine, I can accept you having two women, but I must be the primary one. Only my name can be written on the marriage certificate." Of course only her name would be written on the marriage certificate. I couldn't wish for more. Wait, what did she mean by being the primary one? Do I even have a secondary one? Seeing me remain silent, Lu Ruyan suddenly buried herself in my chest, her voice full of grievance. "In the beginning, you were the one who kept teasing me, wanting to know my name and all about me, and saying those cheesy love lines to me every day. I thought to myself, that was because I lacked experience, so I decided to learn from the internet, which ended up taking me on a massive detour." Lu Ruyan continued, "But I don't know why, even though those love lines were so cheesy, my heart kept racing. I didn't even dare to look at you, fearing you'd see my blushing face." "So you have loved me for a long time?" "That time you almost got hurt, I was really angry and terrified. That was when I realized I truly liked you. But you heartless guy, I was afraid you wouldn't cherish me once you got me, which is why I only let you touch my thigh twice a week. This is a benefit others couldn't get even if they begged." "Well, that's true. Others get side dishes with their noodles, but I get to touch a beautiful thigh. That's indeed a great bargain." Then, Su Tingting appeared. I admit she has a good figure, but definitely not as good as mine. As for other skills, I will study them all and ensure I am better than her. "No, why are you two even comparing yourselves on this? So, Ji Bada, can you please not go propose today? Even if you want to propose, you must propose to me first. She can only be the secondary one." The more Lu Ruyan spoke, the more aggrieved she felt. It was so hard for her to fall for a man for the first time, only for him to turn out to be a playboy. She really wanted to cry, but she had to hold it back. Otherwise, she was afraid that the heartless Ji Bada would look down on her for lacking the elegant demeanor of Su Tingting. Hearing all of this, I suddenly realized something. Just as I was about to open my mouth to explain, thunderous applause suddenly erupted from the nearby proposal venue. Lu Ruyan and I looked in that direction together. We saw Su Tingting and Jiang Chen hugging and kissing each other. Lu Ruyan's eyes widened in disbelief. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. then explained to her, Lu Ruyan, is there a possibility that Su Tingting is actually my cousin, as in blood related? So, the proposal you mentioned was for the two of them? Otherwise, who else? I lifted her chin, leaned down, and kissed her lips. Because, I only like you. From our very first meeting, it was love at first sight, never to change.